What's up, guys? Joey B here. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Got an article here from globalresearch.ca that I wanted to bring to your attention. And the title reads, Police State USA. New Obama executive order seizes U.S. infrastructure and citizens for military preparedness. Okay, we'll go on, we'll read a little bit here. And it says here, in a stunning move, on March 16th, 2012, Barack Obama signed an executive order. And here's a link to it here. I'll also just post the direct link in the description box below, but we'll take a look at that as well after I get through this article. Anyway, it says that Obama signed an executive order stating that the president and his specifically designated secretaries now have the authority to commandeer all domestic U.S. resources, including food and water. The executive order also states that the president and his secretaries have the authority to seize all transportation, energy, and infrastructure inside the United States, as well as forcibly draft American citizens into the military. The executive order also contains a vague reference in regards to harnessing American citizens to fulfill labor requirements for the purposes of national defense. Okay, with the NDAA and all the FEMA camps, you could see this all coming together here. But maybe it's nothing. But I just wanted to share it with you guys because it's some pretty significant developments, if you ask me. And it goes on to say here, not only that, but the authority claimed inside the executive order does not only apply to national emergencies and times of war, it also applies in peacetime. It's the most shocking thing ever. And it says here, the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order exploits the authority granted to the President in the Defense Production Act of 1950 in order to assert that virtually every means of human survival is now available for confiscation and control by the President via his and his Secretary's whim. Okay? And it goes on to say, the unconstitutionality of the overwhelming majority of executive orders is well established, as well as the illegality of denying citizens their basic constitutional and human rights, even in the event of a legitimate national emergency. Likewise, it should also be pointed out that, like Obama's recent Libyan adventure and the foregone conclusion of a Syrian intervention, there is no mention of Congress beyond a minor role of keeping the allegedly co-equal branch of government informed on contextually meaningless developments. Says, as was mentioned above, the scope of the executive order is virtually all-encompassing. For instance, in Section 201, Priorities and Allocations Authorities, the executive order explains that the authority for the actions described in the opening paragraph rests with the President, but is now delegated to the various secretaries of the U.S. federal government. The list of delegations and the responsibility of the secretaries as provided in this section are as follows. And if we go on and read here, excuse me, it says, 1. The Secretary of Agriculture with respect to food resources, food resource facilities, livestock resources, veterinary resources, plant health resources, and the domestic distribution of farm equipment and commercial fertilizer. 2. The Secretary of Energy with respect to all forms of energy. And 3. The Secretary of Health and Human Services with respect to health resources. 4. The Secretary of Transportation with respect to all forms of civil transportation. 5. The Secretary of Defense with respect to water resources. And 6. The Secretary of Commerce with respect to all other materials, services, and facilities, including construction materials. One need only read the definitions section of the executive order in order to clearly see that terms such as food resources is an umbrella that includes literally every form of food and food-related product that could in any way be beneficial to human survival. And, you know, we see in the NDAA and the legislation that states that, you know, if you have more than 7 days of food, you could be a terrorist. We see all these bills, Bill C-51 in Canada, Bill S-510 in the States, trying to make it illegal for you to grow your own raw organic food sources. It's the onslaught is just truly remarkable. And anyways, it goes on here, as it says, that being said, Section 601 Secretary of Labor delegates special responsibilities to the Secretary of Labor, as it involves not just materials citizens will need for survival, but the actual citizens themselves. Obviously, the ability of the U.S. government to induct and draft citizens into the military against their will is, although a clear violation of their rights, not an issue considered shocking by its nature of having been invoked so many times in the past. Logically, this authority is provided for in this section. However, what may be shocking is the fact that Section 601 also provides for the mobilization of labor for purposes of the national defense. Although some subsections read that evaluations are to be made regarding the effect and demand of labor utilization, the implication is that labor, meaning American workers, will be considered yet one more resource to be seized for the purposes of national defense. The executive order reads, and this is Section 601, as it says Secretary of Labor. The Secretary of Labor, in coordination with the Secretary of Defense and the heads of other agencies as deemed appropriate by the Secretary of Labor, shall, as we see here, 1. Collect and maintain data necessary to make a continuing appraisal of the nation's workforce needs for purposes of national defense. Upon request by the Director of Selective Service and in coordination with the Secretary of Defense, assist the Director of Selective Service in development of policies regulating the induction and deferment of persons for duty in the armed services. And 3, upon request from the head of an agency with authority under this order, consult with that agency with respect to the effect of contemplated actions on labor demand and utilization, the relation of labor demand to materials and facilities requirements, and such other matters as will assist in making the exercise of priority and allocations functions consistent with effective utilization and distribution of labor. And it says here, notice that the language of the executive order does not state in the event of a national emergency. Instead, we are given the term purposes of national defense. This is because the authorities assumed by the president have been assumed not just for arbitrary declarations of national emergency, but for peacetime as well, as we said earlier. Indeed, the executive order states this much directly when it says, and I read here, the head of each agency engaged in the procurement for the national defense is delegated the authority of the president under Section 107(b)(1) of the Act, and it says 50 U.S.C. and the code there, APP, anyways, 2007 B1, and it says to take appropriate action to ensure that critical components, critical technology items, essential materials, and industrial resources are available from reliable sources when needed to meet defense requirements during peacetime, graduated mobilization, and national emergency. It also goes on to say here, presidential executive orders have long been used illegally by presidents of every political shade and have often been used to destroy the rights of American citizens. Although history has often come to judge these orders as both immoral and unconstitutional, the fact is that the victims of the orders suffered no less because of the retroactive judgment of their progeny. It is for this reason that we must immediately condemn and resist such obvious usurpation as it is currently being attempted by the U.S. government. Goes on to say here that nevertheless some have no doubt begun to wonder why the president has signed such an order. Not only that, but why did he sign the order now? Is it because of the looming war with Iran or the Third World War that will likely result from such a conflict? Is it because of the ticking time bomb called the economy that is only one jittery move or trade deal away from total disintegration? Or is it because of a growing sense of hatred of their government amongst the general public? Is there a coming natural disaster of which we are unaware? Are there plans for martial law? So many questions. And it says here, whatever the reason for the recent announcement of Obama's new executive order, there is one thing we do know for sure. It wouldn't happen here has been the swan song of almost every victim of democide, if you will, in modern human history. So I'll link you guys up to this article, and I'll also link you up to the original executive order here, which I'll show you. Okay, here we are on whitehouse.gov, the official White House site, and here's the executive order as it says here. You see it's dated March 16th, 2012 for immediate release. Executive order, National Defense Resources Preparedness, and I'll link you guys up to it below, and you'll be able to take a look at the actual legislation for yourself and the text of the executive order. And I just read the article previously, so I'm not going to get into it all. They touched on a lot of the most important things and summed it up very nicely, which is why I wanted to get into that first before I showed you this. But you can see here, the whole text is here, and this is the executive order signed by Obama and gives you everything you need to know. If you want to reference it or share it with people, as it says here, from Barack Obama at the end, from the White House, March 16th, 2012. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because that's a very significant development, and obviously they're preparing for something, whatever it may be. And, with the FEMA camps and with the NDAA being passed, hey, it seems that some sort of a climax is going to be reached here in the near future, and maybe we'll understand what all this legislation that's been being passed with the NDAA and this executive order, or the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order, I should say, and what they actually mean for all of us and why they're being implemented. I'm sure we can put two and two together. But anyway, I just wanted to show you guys and link you guys up to this stuff so you could share it and reference it and see for yourselves what's going on, because it's a very significant development that we all need to be aware of. So much love, my friends, and God bless you all.